Lily lived in a world that felt more like a prison than a home. The sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty ranch, covering everything in a thin layer of grit. Each morning, she awoke before dawn, her heart heavy with the thought of another day filled with tedious chores. Her tiny hands were calloused from hard work, and her hair was often tangled from the wind that swept across the barren landscape. The ranch belonged to Mr. Hawkins, an aging man whose temper matched the harshness of the land he governed. He had little patience for mistakes, and every slip-up was met with his biting words that stung like a whip. "You're not worth your weight in hay, girl," he would shout, sending shivers down Lily's spine. The insults felt endless, echoing in her mind as she carried out each task. Feeding the horses, mending fences, and collecting firewood. Despite the relentless tasks and cruel remarks, Lily held onto a flicker of hope deep within her heart. She dreamed of a life beyond the Dust Bowl, one where laughter replaced harsh words and kindness was abundant. But those dreams felt far away as she worked under Mr. Hawkins's watchful eye, which was always searching for flaws. One fateful day, everything began to change when a stranger rode into town. His name was Jack Ballard, a dapper pistolero known for his sharp looks and quicker draw. He arrived with an air of confidence that caught everyone's attention. The townsfolk whispered about his wealth and adventures in faraway places. But what intrigued Lily most was something deeper. There was a sense of conscience weighing on him, as if he carried burdens unseen. When Jack first laid eyes on Lily, he saw not just a girl enslaved by toil but a spirit yearning to be free. Her sun-kissed skin and bright eyes told him stories of resilience despite her grim circumstances. Realizing how unfairly she was treated stirred something inside Jack, a determination to help her escape this life. As he learned more about Mr. Hawkins and the way he treated Lily, Jack's resolve solidified. He could not stand by while someone so full of potential remained trapped in such despair. With a heart full of courage and purpose, Jack decided to confront the rancher and stake everything he had for Lily's freedom. Her chance at a better life hung in the balance, and so did his fate. The ranch was a desolate stretch of land where the sun hung high in the sky like a relentless overseer. Dust swirled around Lily as she moved through her daily chores, coating her skin and clothes in a gritty haze. Each task felt like a battle against the elements and the unkind words that echoed in her mind. The air was thick with the stench of sweat and livestock, reminding her that she was trapped in a world far removed from any dream of happiness. Every morning, she began her day at dawn, dragging herself out of bed with a sense of dread pressing down on her. The first chore awaited, feeding the cattle. As she poured feed into troughs, Mr. Hawkins's sharp voice would cut through the silence. "Faster, girl. Those cows won't wait for your dawdling." His insults came like cold water splashing over her spirit, numbing any glimmer of enthusiasm she might have had for the day ahead. Next came mending fences along miles of rough terrain. The wooden posts were weathered and splintered, much like Lily's own heart. She worked diligently, but each time she tightened a wire or hammered down a post, she imagined Mr. Hawkins watching from his porch, arms crossed and lips pursed in disapproval. "You call that work?" He would scoff if he saw a flaw in her efforts. The belittlement was relentless, each cutting remark designed to remind her of her worthlessness in his eyes. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the heat became stifling, but there was no relief. After hauling water from a distant well, Lily's tiny hands trembled around the bucket's handle, aching under its weight. Often during these long hours beneath the blazing sun, she would pause to wipe away the sweat mingled with tears of frustration when she thought nobody was looking. Yet deep down, hope flickered. It was a small light that refused to go out entirely. The emotional strain of working under Mr. Hawkins's tyranny weighed heavily on her. Often at night, as exhaustion pulled her into sleep, Lily would lie awake dreaming of a world filled with kindness. One where laughter echoed instead of insults, and where freedom wasn't just a wish but a tangible reality. But each new day brought the same cycle of disappointment, until fate brought Jack Ballard to their dusty doorstep, stirring something within her that had long been buried. The hope for change and liberation from her pain. The day Jack Ballard rode into town was one that would change everything. Clad in a tailored jacket that shimmered even under the harsh sun, he stood out like a rare gem in a dusty old world. His tall, lean figure exuded confidence, while his well-groomed hair and striking features made him an instant spectacle among the townsfolk. Yet it was not just his appearance that commanded attention, it was the air of purpose that surrounded him, hinting at a man of considerable wealth and depth. Jack had traveled far, leaving behind the glamour and riches he had known. His pockets were heavy with gold coins, but it was his conscience that weighed on him the most. He had seen too many people suffer in silence, the kind of suffering that left scars deeper than any bullet wound. It was the sense of compassion that led him to the dusty outskirts where Mr. Hawkins's ranch lay. He had heard whispers of a girl trapped in misery and caught under a tyrant's rule, and he knew he couldn't ignore her plight. As he rode through town, curious glances followed him from the farmers and shopkeepers who paused their work to take in the sight of the newcomer. Jack met their gazes with a nod, sensing their skepticism but also understanding their hardships. He felt the weight of responsibility. Having wealth came with an obligation to help those who had little. The townsfolk may not have known it yet, but change was riding into their lives on horseback. His arrival did not go unnoticed by Lily either. From a distance, she admired how different he looked from everyone else. The way he carried himself suggested confidence and strength. She wondered what brought him to her dusty corner of the world, and her heart fluttered with a tiny spark of hope that maybe he was there for her. Jack spent time asking questions around town, learning about Lily and the cruelty she faced at Mr. Hawkins's hands. With each story he heard, his determination grew stronger. He envisioned freeing Lily from her torment but knew it wouldn't come easy. He would have to confront Mr. Hawkins directly, a gamble that could cost him everything. Still, as Jack stood under the same sweltering sun that bore down on Lily each day, he felt something shift inside him, a call to action ignited by compassion and valor. In that moment, Jack Ballard resolved to challenge the rancher not just for Lily's freedom but for the chance at a brighter tomorrow for them both. Jack Ballard's life had been anything but ordinary. Growing up in the bustling city of San Antonio, he was surrounded by the stories of fearless gunslingers and daring adventurers. Inspired by these tales, Jack became drawn to a life filled with risk and excitement from a young age. As he learned to handle weapons, he quickly earned a reputation as one of the finest marksmen in the West. Each adventure he undertook brought him closer to fame and fortune, yet it also deepened his understanding of the harsh realities of life. Despite his wealth, Jack often found himself wrestling with a heavy conscience. He had seen the repercussions of violence up close. Every gunfight he participated in left behind a trail of pain and loss. For every villain he took down, there were families left grieving. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that, for all his prowess, the bullets he fired sometimes worked against his own moral compass. In moments of reflection, he wondered if true heroism lay not in drawing his gun but in finding ways to uplift those suffering under oppression. As Jack ventured across the plains and mountains, he became more than just a pistolero. He evolved into a man burdened with a sense of responsibility. His journeys revealed to him the plight of the helpless, people too frail or frightened to stand up against their tormentors. He had liberated towns from corrupt leaders and defended innocents from bandits. Each victory offered a fleeting sense of purpose but also made him question whether his methods were noble or simply perpetuated violence. When news reached him about Lily's suffering at Mr. Hawkins's ranch, Jack's heart ached for the girl he had never met but could imagine so clearly in her wearisome struggles. The thought of her enduring such cruelty ignited something fierce within him, a blend of anger and determination. He realized that confronting Mr. Hawkins was more than a challenge. It was an opportunity to align his wealth and skill with a cause that meant something profound. With an uneasy feeling about relying on violence once more, Jack prepared himself for the grim possibility of a duel that could decide Lily's fate. Yet deep down he cherished the hope that perhaps this encounter would serve as a turning point, not just for him but for others caught in cycles of despair. In this moment of reckoning, Jack Ballard chose to embrace his past while striving to forge a better future, one where bravery could lead not only to triumph but also to lasting change. The first time Jack laid eyes on Lily, she was balancing a heavy bucket of water on her hip while her other hand tried to tame the wild strands of hair that the wind had blown across her face. He stood at the edge of the ranch, momentarily forgetting the dusty trail behind him as he watched her work. Even from a distance, her spirit shone through the weariness etched on her face. There was something striking about her determination. It drew him in like a moth to a flame. Lily moved with purpose, her tired legs carrying her back and forth between the well and the barn. As she filled the troughs for the animals, she did so with an unexpected grace that contrasted sharply with her grueling tasks. It was easy to see how hard she fought against the harshness of her life, pushing through even when fatigue threatened to overwhelm her. Every now and then she would catch a glimpse of Jack watching her. Her dark eyes held an unyielding spark that seemed to challenge the world around her. "Hey, you!" a voice roared from behind her, pulling Jack's attention away. Mr. Hawkins emerged from the shadows, his scowl as fierce as ever. "What are you dawdling for? Those animals won't feed themselves." His insults hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. Lily straightened up, jaw clenched but not defeated. "I'm almost done," she replied, her voice steady despite the tremor of exhaustion beneath it. Jack felt a surge of admiration for Lily's bravery as he witnessed this small act of defiance. She did not cower under Mr. Hawkins's harsh words. Instead, she stood tall against them, embodying strength that many would have lost in her situation. In that moment, Jack realized just how much he wanted to help her escape this relentless misery. Unable to resist any longer, Jack approached Lily as Mr. Hawkins turned away with an irritated huff. "You handle yourself well," he remarked casually, trying to keep his tone light despite the weight behind his words. Lily paused, taken aback by his sudden presence but intrigued by the sincerity in his voice. "Thank you," she replied cautiously, studying this stranger who had entered without warning into her dreary world. Jack introduced himself, and as they spoke, he learned about her daily struggles, the chores, the insults, and the dreams that seemed so distant yet flickered like embers in a fire waiting for fuel. The more he listened, the more determined he became to rescue her from this life filled with hardship and oppression. In that brief encounter, Jack saw not just a girl burdened by tasks but a fierce spirit longing for freedom. It ignited his resolve deeper than ever before. He knew he had to do whatever it took to set Lily free and give her a chance at a brighter future, one where joy replaced pain and kindness outweighed cruelty. As Jack prepared to confront Mr. Hawkins, the weight of his decision settled heavily on his shoulders. He understood what was at stake, not just for Lily's freedom but for his own reputation, fortune, and the very essence of who he was as a man. Standing alone outside the saloon one evening, he wrestled with the daunting risks ahead. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows as Jack paced back and forth, his thoughts racing. Facing Mr. Hawkins in a duel meant placing everything he had on the line. His gold coins, the wealth he had collected during years of adventure, would be wagered as part of the challenge. But it wasn't just money. If he lost, he would also bet his finely crafted weapons that had seen him through numerous battles and earned him respect across the West. More than that, this duel would put Jack's reputation on the line. He had built a name for himself as a skilled shootist known not only for his quick draw but also for his integrity. If he were to fail in this challenge against a cruel rancher, how would people view him? Would they see him as just another gunslinger chasing glory or as a fool who failed to uphold his principles? The thought weighed heavily on his heart. Yet all these fears paled when contrasted with Lily's plight. Each moment spent thinking about her suffering intensified Jack's resolve. He envisioned her face, her determined gaze tinged with hope amidst hopelessness, and felt a surge of courage rise within him. He could not allow fear to stop him from fighting for her freedom. It would be an affront to everything he believed in. Jack made his way into town and found himself standing before a gathering of folks who had come to witness the events unfold. The buzz of anticipation filled the air like electricity as townspeople whispered among themselves, their eyes darting between Jack and Mr. Hawkins, who sat confidently drinking on the porch. Summoning all the bravery he had mustered over countless adventures, Jack stepped forward with purpose, raising his voice above the murmurs. "I challenge you, Hawkins. I bet my ranch and my weapons against Lily's freedom." His proclamation rang out clear and strong, drawing gasp-worthy expressions from onlookers. In that moment, Jack knew there was no turning back. He was committed entirely to this cause. Even if the odds were stacked against him, even if victory seemed uncertain. That spark of hope ignited by Lily's spirit pushed him onward into an uncertain future filled with daring choices and high stakes. This wouldn't merely be another duel. It would become a defining moment. A clash driven by compassion and justice, rather than mere ambition or fame. The sun rose slowly on the day of the duel, casting an eerie stillness over the ranch. Jack Ballard stood in front of his modest lodgings, gazing out at the horizon. The calmness of the morning felt surreal, an irony considering the storm brewing inside him. His thoughts churned with doubts. Was he truly ready to face a man as ruthless as Mr. Hawkins? What if he failed? The weight of his decision pressed heavily against his chest, making it hard to breathe. As he prepared, Jack practiced his draw in the dim light of his room. Each time his fingers brushed the handle of his revolver, doubts clouded his mind. What if he wasn't as quick as he thought? What if Hawkins' aim was sharper than his? The idea of losing not just the duel but also the chance to free Lily gnawed at him. He had fought many battles before, but this felt different. This was about justice and rescue, not mere survival. Across the ranch, Lily's life remained as unyielding as ever. She woke to another day of toil, her spirit dimmed by the relentless grind imposed by Mr. Hawkins. But today felt different. A palpable tension filled the air. The townsfolk whispered about Jack's bold challenge, and Lily could sense their excitement. Among the flickers of anticipation, a small spark ignited within her hope. With each chore she completed, her thoughts drifted to Jack. She remembered the way he looked at her with admiration and determination, the first kindness she had ever received from a stranger. As she fed the horses, she allowed herself to dream of freedom, imagining what life could be like without Mr. Hawkins's oppressive hand hovering over her every move. She envisioned running through fields of wildflowers, laughing freely with friends under a bright blue sky. Tearing herself from her fantasies, Lily wiped her hands on her dress and took a deep breath, steeling herself against the emotional storms threatening to sway her hope. "He can do this," she whispered to herself. "Jack can win." Her heart raced as she clung to that belief. It was all she had in a world that seemed determined to crush her spirit. Meanwhile, Jack's preparations were nearing completion. He looked in the mirror one last time, adjusting his hat and checking his revolver's readiness. He clenched his jaw and whispered words of determination to himself, for Lily. He stepped into the sunlight where townspeople had gathered, their murmurs a mix of excitement and concern. Rising above the murmurs like thunder, Jack felt both anxiety and resolve surge within him. This was more than just a duel. It was a fight for hope and a chance for a better life for them both. The atmosphere on the day of the duel was thick with tension, as if the very air crackled with energy and anticipation. Townsfolk gathered in a tight circle near the saloon, their faces a mix of excitement and fear. Whispers flowed like wildfire, each person sharing their opinions on the upcoming showdown between Jack Ballard and Mr. Hawkins. Some spoke in hushed tones, while others voiced loud predictions about who would emerge victorious. Children peeked from behind their mothers' skirts, eyes wide with curiosity at the spectacle unfolding before them. The older men exchanged knowing glances, recalling previous duels that had ended in bloodshed or glory. Jack's arrival had stirred hope into the hearts of many. Could this dapper stranger truly challenge the cruel rancher? As they waited for the hour to approach, an electric buzz filled the air, a palpable feeling of impending change. In stark contrast to this growing excitement, Mr. Hawkins lounged outside his porch, exuding smug confidence. He adjusted his hat with a cocky grin, sipping whiskey as he surveyed the crowd with disdain. To him, Jack was just another fool daring to challenge his authority, a mere blip on his radar. The rancher's reputation for ruthlessness preceded him, and he relished the thought of putting Jack in his place. "He'll regret ever stepping foot onto my land," Hawkins sneered to himself, casting a contemptuous glance toward where Jack prepared for battle. As minutes ticked by like hours, both uncertainty and resolve filled Jack's heart. He could feel the weight of every pair of eyes upon him. They were counting on him to deliver justice not just for Lily but also for themselves. Every glance exchanged among townsfolk reminded him that this duel represented more than a personal fight. It symbolized resistance against tyranny. Lily stood at a distance behind the crowd, her heart racing with hope and anxiety. She watched as Jack paced and practiced his draw one last time under the watchful gaze of those around him. Her spirit flickered between fear and excitement. She believed in him even as doubts crept into her mind about what could happen next. As noon approached and shadows lengthened across the dry ground, tension escalated further. The scent of sweat mixed with dust hung heavy in the air as everyone braced themselves for the inevitable clash ahead, the culmination of dreams deferred and hopes revived, all resting on this single moment in time. It became clear, today was not simply about winning or losing, it was about standing up against oppression itself and fighting for what was rightfully theirs, even if it meant risking everything in pursuit of freedom. As the clock struck noon, the two men stood opposite each other in the center of town, the air thick with anticipation. Jack Ballard's heart raced as he locked eyes with Mr. Hawkins, whose cocky grin only fueled his determination. The townspeople gathered in a horseshoe shape, their gazes shifting nervously between the two figures. A deadly silence hung over them, broken only by the sound of a distant rooster crowing. Hawkins, confident and arrogant, stood relaxed with one hand resting casually on his revolver's grip. "You've made a grave mistake challenging me, Ballard," he taunted, his voice dripping with derision. "This land is mine, and so are you." Jack inhaled deeply, steadying himself against the rush of adrenaline coursing through him. He recalled Lily's face, the hope shining in her eyes, and felt a surge of bravery wash over him. "This ends today," he declared, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. The townsfolk leaned forward, breaths held as the moment drew closer to an explosive conclusion. Jack could sense their hopes riding on him. It was more than just his fight, it was for their shared future and for Lily's freedom. With a sudden nod from the local marshal signaling the duel to commence, both men reached for their guns in one swift motion. Jack's fingers moved with practiced ease. The years of training had honed his reflexes to an instinct. But even as he aimed at Hawkins, doubts flickered through his mind. Had he truly prepared enough? In a heartbeat that felt like an eternity, they both drew their weapons. The sharp crack of gunfire erupted into the still air, and Jack's heart pounded in his ears. He aimed carefully, his eyes trained on Hawkins' trembling hand. Jack fired first. The bullet whizzed past Hawkins but found its mark on the wooden post behind him, splintering wood into the air. The rancher returned fire immediately, a look of rage now replacing his smug demeanor. Hawkins' shot barely missed Jack's side, close enough to graze his shirt and send chills down his spine. The crowd gasped collectively, tension mounting as they saw the danger escalating. Breathless but focused, Jack moved to circle around Hawkins, using everything he had learned through years of facing threats. He tapped into every ounce of skill and composure deep within him. This wasn't just about speed, but precision and control under pressure. With calculated timing, Jack squeezed the trigger again, aiming for Hawkins' gun this time rather than the man himself. The shot struck true. Hawkins' weapon flew from his grasp while he stumbled back from the unexpected force of the blast. Gasps echoed through the crowd again as they witnessed this unexpected turn of events. For a brief moment, time froze as everyone processed what had happened. Jack saw Hawkins' expression shift from arrogance to shock, a moment of vulnerability that ignited something inside Jack. "Step down," he commanded firmly, standing tall despite the rapid beating of his heart. The crowd watched in as Jack Ballard faced down Mr. Hawkins with sheer bravery, one man's will against another's cruelty. This clash would not only determine his fate but also solidify hope for many in this town who had long suffered under tyranny. The air around them crackled with tension as Jack stood with his gun aimed at Mr. Hawkins, the rancher's proud arrogance now shattered. The townsfolk remained frozen, their breaths held as they processed the shocking turn of events. Hawkins dropped to his knees, disarmed and defeated, his expression a mixture of disbelief and rage. "We've seen the last of you, Hawkins," Jack declared firmly, feeling the weight of the moment settle heavily on him. With the crowd erupting into cheers and applause, a wave of relief washed over Jack. He had not only triumphed over a tyrant but also ignited hope in those who had felt powerless for far too long. As Jack lowered his weapon, his thoughts turned to Lily. He scanned the crowd until he found her standing a few paces back, eyes wide with astonishment and joy. For a brief moment, their eyes locked and all the unsaid words passed between them, the gratitude, the respect, and the promise of a shared future. Her light shone bright against a backdrop of uncertainty that had defined her life for so long. The townspeople gathered around Jack, celebrating his victory while keeping an eye on Hawkins, who was being forcibly pulled away by several men in town. They wouldn't let him wreak havoc any longer. His reign of cruelty was finally over. Lily stepped forward hesitantly, uncertainty in her heart but hope soaring in her spirit. "Jack," she began, her voice trembling slightly but filled with emotion. "Did you really do it? Did you win?" Jack smiled warmly and nodded. "It's over now." He could hardly believe it himself. Freedom was no longer just a dream for them. "You're free, Lily." Tears glimmered in her eyes as she took a step closer. In that moment, all the burdens she had carried began to lift. Those daily chores under Mr. Hawkins's thumb would never haunt her again. A new chapter awaited, one filled with possibilities instead of despair. As they stood together amid joyful chaos, Jack reached out and took Lily's hand gently in his own. They did not need words, their bond had deepened through shared struggles and bravery. The people around them were beginning to see not just a girl and a gunslinger but two souls united against oppression. "Let's find out what this world has for us now," he said softly, leading her away from the remnants of the duel towards the horizon stretching ahead, a world teeming with choice and freedom. In that fleeting moment beneath the expansive sky, Jack Ballard knew that he had fought not only for Lily's liberty but for redemption for himself as well, a chance to forge connections rooted in kindness rather than conflict. Their story together was just beginning, forged by bravery and hope that would carry them forward into brighter days ahead. With Mr. Hawkins finally out of the picture, a sense of renewal swept over the ranch and the townsfolk. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting golden rays upon the landscape, Jack and Lily stood hand in hand, their eyes scanning the horizon ahead. Freedom was no longer just a distant dream, it was now their reality. The town buzzed with life as people began to reclaim their spirits. They shared stories of bravery and resilience, fueled by Jack's actions. Children raced through the streets, laughter filling the air, while adults worked together to rebuild a sense of community long overshadowed by fear. The atmosphere shifted from one of oppression to one bursting with vitality and hope. Lily felt a rush of gratitude for everything Jack had risked to set her free. The weight of her past burdens began to lift, making way for new possibilities. "What will we do now?" she asked softly, glancing up at Jack. A smile spread across his face, illuminating a new confidence within him. "I think it's time we discover what this world has to offer us," Jack replied, his voice steady and reassuring. He motioned towards the trail that led beyond the ranch and into uncharted territory. The adventure awaiting them was just beginning. Eager yet apprehensive, they stepped forward together. With each stride, Lily felt her spirit reigniting. Gone were the shackles of Mr. Hawkins's tyranny. With Jack by her side, she was ready to embrace life boldly. They wandered down the dusty road, ready to explore the valleys and hills that lay ahead, filled with potential for excitement and joy. As they walked, they shared stories of their dreams and visions for what tomorrow could bring. Jack spoke of traveling to distant towns and sharing tales of freedom and bravery, while Lily shared her own ambitions of learning new skills, perhaps one day running a business or helping others who might find themselves trapped as she once was. Together, they painted vibrant pictures of dreams that were long stifled but now seemed within their reach. In that moment, surrounded by the beauty of open fields and a backdrop of endless sky, they realized that their lives were intertwined. Their hardships had equipped them both with not just survival but strength that would propel them into new adventures together. It wasn't merely about leaving the old life behind, it was also about building something beautiful anew, a partnership forged in struggle, resilience, and unwavering hope. As they ambled along the path, laughter echoed behind them, mingling with the sweet scent of wildflowers blooming in abundance, a fitting symbol of their own blossoming lives after navigating shadows of despair. There was a bright new era waiting for them on the horizon, and together they would greet it with open hearts and open minds, ready for whatever journey awaited next.